Welcome back to Yield Today with Dallin Candland. I'm here with Colin Kingsmill. He helps people with overcoming their fears and does a lot of other cool stuff, and just excited to jump with him in his journey. So thanks for coming on, Colin.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about fear and how fear doesn't really bring us to good places. You know, if we let fear drive our car, well, what tends to happen, Colin, with the people you work with?
Well, look, to me, it's always about it's always about allocation of resources, right? Like how much of your fuel tank, speaking of driving cars, how much of your fuel tank do you want to spend on fear, negativity, anxiety, and and then all of the kind of the derivative emotions that can come with it. So for me, it's really a question of how do you want to allocate your resources. And fear typically is constrains people, right? So it makes them smaller, it makes you smaller, it makes your decisions more stressful. It's not an expansive energy. And I think fear is fine with if it's like fight or flight kind of thing, right? Where it's like a biological response. Of course, we have to be afraid sometimes, but most of the time we don't have to be, right? So do you want to be contracting into fear, which holds you in like a what's the word? It holds you in like a bear grip, right? And it keeps you mobile. Or do you want to look on the flip side, which is, joy and bliss and happiness and expansion and possibilities and higher energy and all of those things that come with it. I just found fear to be kind of useless, and the reason that I'm not obsessed about it, but the reason that I work with people about becoming fearless is I've had these experiences of living and working around the world and just kind of saying yes to things and diving off the deep end when I didn't know what was going to be happening, and the experience was enriching. So that's why I'm on this mission of helping people live fearlessly, right? Because if you can live fearlessly, I guess if you live in integrity and you live fearlessly, then you can really become free, right? And we all deserve to be free from psychological suffering and to be who we're meant to be.
Yeah, it makes you think of how every choice we make is kind of making the next couple choices a little easier for ourselves. I've been playing a lot of Settlers of Catan with my cousins and brother, and so allocation of resources definitely hits. Like making a city or a road or whatever can make it so you can make something better for yourself down the road, and you can build on that. There isn't a ton you can build on with fear. I think fear can teach you a lot of things about yourself. Like you can be like, okay, wow, it's interesting I can feel all these things, but you can't let it hold you hostage. You have to break free. You need to take those steps forward. And really it is like those tiny steps of love forward will lead to those chains breaking.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly right. The chains of fear just keep you down, right? They keep you in place. They don't allow for mobility. They don't allow for expansion. They don't allow for creativity. When you're fearful, you add stress and all the baseline, even like your physiology and your biomechanics and your neuroplasticity, fear just keeps that all held down. So what's the point, right?
Yeah, definitely. So tell us about somebody from your life, Colin, that taught you a lot about fear and maybe like how not to do these things.
Yeah, look, I think it was a self-taught course. It was self-taught, really. I mean, I've had great mentors along the way, but I had to live the experiences that I had on my own back. And the whole first part of my life, I think I've lived life in 3 chapters, right? The whole first part of my life was I built it because I feared that I was unworthy. I feared that I wasn't good enough. I feared that nobody would love me. I feared that I would still be an outsider or not accepted, right? And that was a direct result of my childhood. So I spent 15 years going to school, getting educated, doing this, doing that, climbing the ladder, ticking all the boxes of success. But that was all fear driven, right? And I got to 35 and I hit a wall, I hit a wall with depression and anxiety and frustration and anger and probably a bunch of other emotions that my friends at the time might describe to you. So I learned on my own skin what a fear-based existence can do. I mean, it almost drove me crazy. And I had an awakening at 35 or around that time. And I said, you know what? I committed to be fearless. And I didn't know what that meant. But for me, it was just say yes. Just say yes to whatever arises. Just say yes and try it and do it. And even if you don't know the consequences, even if you don't know the answer, even if you don't have a plan, just try it. So the first sort of challenges that came my way were work related and daunting, right? Like how do you do this in that market with no marketing and I just said yes, and I had some great coaches. Actually, that's probably a good point about teachers. I had some really good coaches that were kind of sitting on they were kind of sitting on the precipice of, not the precipice, but sitting on both the sort of the business coaching side of things, but also on the sort of spiritual metaphysical side of things. So they really helped me understand more about energy, more about intention, more about manifestation, more about visualization and all of these things. And they really helped me through those kind of fearful moments. And then as you kind of have these experiences, and whether they're good or bad or whatever, don't label them necessarily. They're just education, right? You have these experiences and they start compiling, and you realize that, I can do this myself. I can be fearless. I can also, I think we're somehow educated that, kids or youth or young adults or even adults, we're not supposed to have bad experiences. We're not supposed to have, challenges. Life is supposed to be nice and easy and cushy. Well, that's not really productive. That's not so good for you. So, I've had great experiences and terrible experiences, and I don't really judge them anymore. They just brought me to where I am today. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it was certainly a series of habits. You hit a wall, you say, I'm going to do things differently now. And then I did have some good coaches. I did a lot of reading. I dove into every sort of spiritual self-help book possible out there. And so what I'm doing today is really just helping people shorten that time span, right? It doesn't have to take you 20 years to become fearless. It can take you a lot less. So that's my mission now, is to help people discover their humanity, discover connection to community and other people in the process, live in integrity, because I think I think so often fear also comes out as an embodiment of, people pleasing, family pleasing, pleasing other people, not putting yourself first, putting yourself second, being a doormat, not having boundaries. All the symptoms are many. But if you discover our shared humanity and you decide to live in integrity, you can be fearless, and that equals freedom from suffering, freedom from psychological suffering. So that's what I'm doing today. People don't have People don't have to take my timeline. It's like 25 years of work.
Yeah, no, that I love that. It's like you don't have to follow the same path. You don't have to follow the same route. There's you can make your own path. And there's been a couple times in my life, Colin, where I can think of where I was definitely living a fear-based existence, and those have been some of the most oof, yikes, help, I'm stuck times of my life. And I was like, there'd be times I'd reach out to people about it, and sometimes they would kind of like, I don't know, just I sort of think of like the crab, like I'm trying to get out of it and they're kind of like pulling me back in a little bit. Like, you're doing just fine, you're great. It's like, that's not what I want to hear. Like, I need somebody to like give me a kick in the pants kind of thing. Like, you're doing this to yourself. Sometimes that's what I want to hear, and that nobody's like, sometimes people aren't willing to tell me that. But it's humbling when you wake up and you look at yourself and you're like, holy cow, obviously we don't have complete control of everything, but a lot of this has been self-inflicted, self-sabotage of a sort. It's like there was things that happened and I chose to lean towards fear. I chose to go into the darkness even though the lights were on, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, sometimes it's a comforting place, right? Because it's familiar, right? So many people that I work with are on that kind of closed loop, right? Of, oh, I'm going to stay in this spot because it's nice and warm, even though I'm, shivering in the dark. It's familiar. So you're right. The work that I do is really, how do I say this politely? I'm really direct about, whacking somebody on the side of the head and go snap out of it, right? Because, you're right. We do have these moments in life, right? That can be perceived as really negative or dark or whatever. Of course, we live in a very complex world, but the way and how you react or how I react is your choice, right? And I call it the Flintstone moment, right? Like, you get up in the morning, or I get up in the morning, and in a millisecond, like a spark from a rock, right? In a millisecond, you decide to go up or down, right? You decide the storyline of the day in a really quick, short time frame. So I'm saying to people, be in control of that Flintstone moment. You're in control of the decision. You're in control of how you react. You're in control of how your emotions are going to be managed throughout the day. But I agree, people just appeasing your sort of state of mind is, I don't know, it's never very useful. It's small talk. It's small talk for me, right? It's like okay, meaningless.
Yeah, I think there's a place where it can be useful, but especially when we want to hear something different, it really is tough. And I don't know, for me, Colin, I woke up this morning and I was like, this is my last week of living here by myself at home before I move back in, by myself at this apartment before I moved back in with my family. I did 10 push-ups, and before I jumped in my cold shower, I'd already done almost 40 total. And then I went on my run and broke my record of running around this place, probably around 3 miles or so. And then I jumped on this call, and before that I also rode for like over an hour. So I'm like, this is good, this is really good, because like this has not been the case every day that I've lived here. Like, one of the days I think I literally slept in till like noon, or there's even been like a couple all-nighters and whatever, but you just get back up and you learn and you grow and you do what you can. And I think that's one of the most helpful things for me, is knowing that the brain is neuroplastic, that there's ways to change your brain, literally. And that's something I've been taking a very, 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 very direct role in, and like really taking my place there and being like, no, I am going to form you this way to appreciate this thing. And so I have like a victory lap playlist. So whenever I do something even small that I love, that I want to appreciate, I just play that. And so like after I woke up and I did my push, like, bro, victory lap. And then after I jumped in my cold shower, because I've already taken 2 cold showers today, because I did one before my run and after my run. So it's like after each of those, kind of, you do that. And it's a little crazy, but for me, it makes sense. And I know that this is only a period of my life, and so I'm really trying to just own it. But yeah, sometimes we do really need to celebrate ourselves, because some people do not know how to celebrate us. They don't know how to help us, and it's just because we know ourselves better than they do a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you said a few really good things there, right? There's quite a few nuggets. I mean, the first one is gratitude, right, and celebration, and I would add things like joy and playtime and inner child, right? We like I said before, we live in a very complex society, right? Our culture is quite toxic and it's quite sick, right? You just have to look at the mental health data in the United States or in Canada, and we are in dire straits when you look at the amount of depression and anxiety and suicide and all the other illness that's happening around us. So we have to do like you were just saying. I call it the personal protection system, right? Or call it your personal kryptonite. Call it whatever you want, but we need to create those habits, those things that appear so small, like gratitude and joy and celebration. Those are massive for the mind, right? They 20 years ago, this stuff used to be kind of woohoo, hippy dippy stuff, and law of attraction, or Joe Dispenza on energy and vibration and the importance of. But now technology shows how the brain changes, right? We've got the proof. There's proof that what you did this morning changes who you are. And I think that's that's the second, thing. It's like celebration and gratitude, and then understanding the potential, the possibilities, the power that you have over your mind, over your stories. That's brilliant. Keep it up. Don't stop.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I think a lot of it is recognizing that if you're on the right, like there's this quote from a member of my church that kind of comes to mind. It's like, if you're on the right path, it'll always be uphill. Like, it's not meant to be easy. Like, you can learn so much from just continuing to put yourself out there. And, it's just like, there's that one quote from the Facing the Giants scene. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's like the death crawl scene. And he's like, it's all hard from here. Like, he's like, Brock is like going, he's like, I'm running out of strength. Like, I'm not going to make it. And he has like blindfolds on him. And because the coach is like pushing him, and it's like seeing how far can he go. Because Brock doesn't really know how far he can go, but the coach sees it in Brock. And he's like, you negotiate with your body to find more strength, because there is more there. And then he's like, it's all hard from here. It's all hard. And he's like, it hurts. Brock's like, it hurts. And the coach is like, I know it hurts. Like, it's literally, that's the point. And I look at when I had this tough awakening moment after I graduated from college and really saw myself in the mirror, it was these long runs. It was these other things that really helped me to really wake up and kind of rebuild. But yeah, celebration is such a big part of it, man. Inner child stuff. I'm like, bro, I'm just going to go so deep on that, because I definitely was holding it back from myself sometimes. It was so rough. Like, I wouldn't let myself feel good about myself unless I did like XXX thing. And even when I did do really good, like I remember when I got like a 97 on this accounting test, and I had failed the class before, and so now I'm taking it a second time, and I got a 97 on the first test, and I was just like, great. Like, that was it. It's like, what in the world? It's like, no, you put in all this work. Clearly there's been something that's changed here. You don't get a 97 by accident on an accounting test. But I was like, that's great. And it's like, this is just part of the process, but it doesn't change anything, really. And just this super it's not super negative, but just kind of mellow talk of like, or just in between, like, I'm not going to get too excited about it. It's like, dude, it's a 97. So I don't know. I'm being way big about the small wins now.
They're so important because they build on each other, right? Small win plus small win plus small win equals big win, So what do you think? What was the catalyst for you? What made you shift in that way? Do you remember? Or
yeah, it was a conglomerate. Like, it was a buffet of experiences, for sure. And I feel like God put those out for me. It's like, hey, these are here for you, and I will keep putting good things in your life, no matter how much you beat yourself up. And you can choose to take from my buffet, or you can choose to wallow in your self-pity. And so I had an opportunity to be a youth counselor in Alaska, shortly after this, and that was a beautiful experience. And then there was other really beautiful experiences God put in my life, and of course doing the podcast, there'd be moments where I know is helping me out. But I think what really was a big turning point, I think there's a bunch, but one was in July where I met with this church leader, and I heard these words coming out of my mouth that I was not liking. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like my life. I am really struggling. I feel so stuck. Like, I wake up, it feels like I'm living a nightmare, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, he heard me out. He was really great. He's like, we might need to look into you having a therapist for a little bit. And I was like, dude, that's probably what I need. It's probably what I need, because I have all this energy. I have all this desire, and there's like no place to put it. Like, I don't have a job. I don't have any of these things. I'm living at my aunt's house, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, meeting with the therapist was super, super, super helpful, and she helped me to work on these things. But I think it was a number of different things, but a lot of it was recognizing that conversation I was having and being like, okay, we have to switch this. We have to switch this around somehow.
Right. Well, I mean, a couple of things there that are really important, I think. We have conversations in our head all day long, and we don't even notice it. We don't even, it's kind of subliminal, right? You may be only picking up on 5% of it, but 85% of that vat of negativity or the vat of storytelling is still going on, right? So I'm a big proponent of speaking with somebody, speaking with a therapist, speaking with whoever that is, slightly trained or adequately trained, because again, we live in such a complex time that it's really easy for you or I to tell ourselves stories that aren't true, or that are self-limiting, or that keep you down, or that, remind you and keep you in the past. I mean, that's why my whole sort of ethos is deconstruct to reconstruct, right? Deconstruct the stories that are going on in your head and reconstruct new ones based on today and where you're going from now. And if we need to go back in time and kind of remove the lenses of, negative self-beliefs or small t trauma or whatever you have to do, you're allowed to clear the way. You're allowed to see life through clear lenses, and you're allowed to have a new story. That's my, I say that a lot to people. It's like it doesn't have to be like this, and whatever it takes, whether it's, and the nice thing about today too, with podcasts like this, is that people are talking about these things. They used to be taboo, right? You never used to be able to talk about mental health or, feeling down, or especially men, right? Men tend to go around wearing a mask, right? Because of these expectations that are set upon us. So hallelujah to getting therapy, getting help. It's just deconstructing stories. That's all it is. There should be nothing taboo about this, especially in the context of the world we live in. And that's why I say, turn off the news, stop absorbing negativity, stop, put up a wall, against toxicity, toxic friends, toxic whatever. Get it out of your life. And rewrite the stories.
Yeah, man. It's humbling because, I've been writing a ton of poetry, and there's been times where I send over mounds of text to this person of like how much I appreciate them, etc. But then I was not willing to do that for myself. And so now, in Alaska, I wrote this thing called When I Look at Dallin, and it was basically, when I look at Dallin, all I see is strength. I see a warm soul whose sphere mirrors its length. I see one who is hopeful, kind, builds people up, and all this stuff. And I listened to that over and over and over again when I was in Alaska after writing that. I think I wrote it June 17th. And it definitely just elevated me and has led to a ton of growth over time. But it is pretty wild how that conversation can change. It can change, and it can improve, and it can deepen. and it can go all over the place. Like this morning, I was writing, and I was only planning to write 750 words for my 750 words, and all of a sudden I was like, oh shoot, we're just going. So I wrote like 6,000 words this morning. You know, it's like all these different thoughts. It's mostly just a brain dump going all over the place, all these things I need to feel. But when we give ourselves that space, there's no limit. There's literally no limit. When we don't have that space, we get stuck as anything. We get stuck as like a pig in its mud, and the pig won't leave the mud for anything because the pig loves to get dirty. But when we give ourselves that peace of mind and that space, like for me, the podcast, poetry, runs, all these things gave me space. My therapist gave me space. All these things gave me so much space so I could eventually break free on my own.
Yeah, well done. Congratulations. I mean, you said it, right? It's like, do I want to sit in my mud, in my pen, right? Or do I want that space to expand? And the minute you give yourself space, creativity flows, right? You get into the flow of everything, right? So, yeah, so important. So important. And look at the impact of you being in that flow space, right? You're writing, you're seeing things, you're 2 cold showers, running, like it just changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the potential we have to rewrite these stories or to improve these things is so crazy. I heard this on the personal development mastery podcast. Is this guy who's a speaker, and he was talking about the 2 stories you need to work on that you can work on right now are the story you tell of your past and the story you tell of your future. And so lately I've been very, very, very good about telling the story of my past in a much more uplifting light, but still looking at everything that happened. Everything is still there, but it's like I'm telling it how I want to tell it, and I'm giving myself so much compassion because I know that even this moment right here, Colin, this moment right here, I will look back on this moment 5 years from now and be like, holy heck, how was he able to do all that? Because that's how I look at last year. How in the world was I able to go on some of these runs? And I was talking with random people, and then in Alaska, I met this dude who was working at the college that we did the youth camp at. And I just opened up and talked with him, and I cared about him, and he was like working on his sprinting, and I just got invested in that instead of being in my own world. And now we're friends. Now he sees my posts. Now I could call him up probably 10 minutes after this, and we could talk. But if I didn't lean in the love and that opportunity I had to meet him and get to know him in Alaska, that wouldn't have happened. But leaning into love, yielding to love, like that's literally the name of this podcast, is yielding today. It's like, it's beautiful. It really is, man.
Well, there's something about authenticity in there too, right? And integrity. Like if you lean into that, love and the sort of the purest form of human connection, that authenticity and that integrity is just so liberating, isn't it? Like you just get so much energy from it, I think, because you're not slopping around in the trenches of self-doubt or self-pity or I want to protect this, or I'm afraid of this, or I can't say this, or I can't say that. I mean, nothing useful comes out of that way of living. Whereas now you have a friend for life, right? That you can call up, and precisely because you let go, you yielded to just let it happen. It's great.
Yeah, and it's the cool thing. I was reading some of my old 750 word entries this morning as well after doing my writing, and it's like when you kind of let go and you do these things that you know you need to do for yourself. Like I didn't want to shave last night at all, but I was like, I need to shave. I only shave at night because I think shaving in the morning is a complete waste of time. So I need to shave in the morning or tonight, even though it's really, really late. I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m. maybe when I shaved last night, or maybe it was like midnight, but it was still late. But I was like, it said in this thing that when you do that, the new blessings will write themselves in. Like they will become so clear to you, and you'll just be able to do those next things way better instead of your brain thinking like, oh, I really need a shave, oh, I still need a shave, why aren't you shaving? When you like acknowledge it and be like, okay, I'll shave, it only takes like 5 minutes. And that's what I do. That's what helps me, Colin. Like when it comes to talking to somebody, I'm like, it will take me 2.5 minutes to talk to this person, and it may make their day. I may have a friend for life, I may not. It may make a real difference. It'll take 2.5 minutes. I've done way harder things than that. I've done way harder things. 2.5 minutes is nothing. Or if with shaving, it's like, this could take longer, but it'll probably only take 5 minutes. And with some of these other things, it will not take that long. Just go.
Yeah, and I think also when you stop worrying about, like, again, fear when you stop worrying and fretting and about these things, and wanting to be in the future or wanting to be in the past, and you kind of stay present in the moment. It's funny how that time almost disappears, right? Like if you're worried about the future or the past, time can seem like those 5 minutes might stretch out. But if you just relinquish and let go and yield, like you say, 5 minutes is like, oh, that just happened, right? Again, I think it's a question of being in flow with everything else.
Definitely. Yeah, so tell us like what your day-to-day is like right now, Colin. How do you live in flow? How do you continue to be in a good spot when you appear on these podcasts? Because you come off really well in this podcast. You're doing a good job sharing things. Like how do you do this on the day-to-day?
So I definitely have started. I make sure that I start the day with meditation and mindfulness. So that's pretty rigorous. I'd like to get up to an hour of meditation, different types of meditation in. That might include even like a sound bath in the forest. So get outside, get connected to nature, feel the energy of the world and the planet and Mother Nature that we live in. I also so that's how I set the tone for the day. I get up and I set the tone, and I work with I work with a lot of great people, so that gives me energy. But then to stay kind of on track, I have a lot of things around me that remind me. So I've got my little Buddha over there, and then I've got my water over here, and I'm making sure I'm hydrated, and I've got my vision board over there, and I've got my book board over there. So I just make sure to be aware as much as possible throughout the day, and to not be in a sort of zombie state, right, of reactivity or of negativity. So I'm always trying to make sure that throughout the day, that Flintstone moment, that decision to go up or down, that I'm aware of it. And I you know what it is? It's really deciding to love yourself, I think. It's for me it's about, do I go to the fridge and eat that I know isn't good for me, or do I eat that, right? It's that choice that we've got every day, all day long. I know there's 24 hours in the day. So I do quite a bit of that, and then I also I listen to I listen to affirmative podcasts, ones that are, I don't watch the news, I don't listen to the news, but I will listen to a great podcast by a fellow coach who I think, like Mel Robbins, or I'll listen to something like Aubrey Marcus. That's a much longer form podcast, or Sam Harris's Making Sense. And then I'll also, I have this thing in my head. It's like a tripod, right? And if you or I are sitting on top of the tripod, what are the legs to the tripod? So I think the first one is, what's my I don't know, personal brand? How am I nourishing that? How am I understanding the world around me, and how am I working with people? So I kind of have those three pedestals that I just keep an eye on throughout the day, right? And one of them about the world around us, I do a lot of reading around sense making, understanding how the world is working, understanding the mega trends that are happening. So I get into geopolitics. I love geopolitics. I love economics. I love history. So contextualizing this crazy world we live in can really turn down the volume on worrying or fretting or thinking, oh my God, this is such a disaster. Well, maybe or maybe not, but history's repeating itself, and this has happened before, and that's what happens after, and these are the geopolitics, these are the demographics. So I don't know. I guess to answer your question in one word, it would just be awareness.
Yeah, man, as we continue to go through life and as whatever happens from the second of this conversation happening, this is August 21st. So hopefully this will be out by the end of 2023, hopefully. We'll see. Yeah, I'm just like right now I'm a one-man band. I am working on making that better and such, but I most likely will. But with everything that goes on, awareness is basically everything. Because if you are denying the facts, if you're denying what has happened, if you are not letting yourself feel the beauties of what is beautiful, then you are going to get, it's going to be difficult. You're going to feel frustrated at times. You're going to get wound up about things that are really, really, really not a big deal. I remember this one time, last year I had this job, and something that my boss said about me or some way he treated me, it made me so upset. And I made this audio recording and I started going off, and I was like, it's like, this is really good. I can just, and then I was like, after that I was like, well, delete that. That was not you. That was not useful. And yeah. I didn't say anything about it to him. I just was just still super kind. It was he has a lot on his mind. I changed the conversation. This guy's a lot on his mind. How is he doing this? So it changed to curiosity and admiration. Yeah, just it's crazy. And then I still hear people, I have friends that work in that job still, and they've said that boss appreciates you. He hopes you are doing well. He remembers you fondly, et cetera, et cetera. And so I look back and it's that was love, was not saying how I was feeling, not reaching, telling him how that, just feeling those feelings and then letting them all completely go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing there is you said it, right? It's letting it go. Right. And I think if you can go through the day aware of your reactions and aware of your reactivity and aware of your emotions and how you are in control, right? And decide, every minute of the day, decide, is this serving me? Is this, is this serving me and is it serving others? And then it becomes kind of much easier to navigate. But if you're full of anger and reactivity and negativity and lack of love for yourself, even, it makes life quite a bit more challenging.
Yeah. Well, now we've come full circle, so that's pretty impressive. Fear constrains you. Fear makes you small. Fear destroys your freedom. Fear completely constricts you. So what would be some final tips you'd say of how somebody can overcome their fear in little bites at a time? And sure. Then how do we get in contact with you, Colin?
Sure. Yeah. So I have a several step process to live fearlessly and live with more confidence. The first one is turn off the news and get informed, right? So the news is a product, and it's the headlines can be interesting, but they're like eating junk food or a box of chocolates, right? Just get informed, but don't watch the news, right? And so the first step is really protection. Protect yourself from the toxicity of the world that might be surrounding you or us, right? The second step for me is really about listening to yourself and listening to your body and listening to the stories and listening to what's going on. There's some wonderful books out there and resources like Gabor Mate's new book, The Myth of Normal, which is about trauma and healing in a toxic culture. So protect yourself, listen to yourself, and then design the picture of the life that you want, right? Because so often when we're in fear, it's because we don't know what's next, right? We don't know what the destination is. Where am I going? What am I doing? And you're a victim to everybody else interacting with you. So I say, design a very accurate picture of your life, whether that's a vision board or whether that's journaling or however it is. Describe it in great detail and then break it down into goals that you can actually achieve. Again, we're turning down the volume on fear here because your life is no longer a mystery of the unknown, but you've clarified what it looks like, right? So using the sailing metaphor, decide where you're sailing to, put the milestone marker in there, navigate to that, and don't really deviate from that, but have steps along the way. Mel Robbins has got a great podcast out, and she had a really good episode about goal setting and kind of the new research around goal setting. You got to break it down and make it bite sized. And then I tell people to forget what they've learned, right? And I don't mean forget about school or whatever, but forget about the conditioning that is no longer serving you, right? What conditioning from the past is making you see life through opaque lenses? So let's get rid of those lenses, right? And then I would argue, forget about what other people think. And this is connected to that idea of living in integrity. Just imagine the resources that you will have at your availability if you stop worrying about your mother, your daughter, your father, the whole construct of people that you live for. So those are, forget. And then I guess it's really daily rituals to stay on track. Because of the society that we live in, at least you and I here in the West, we are bombarded with distraction, right? And we're bombarded with hyper-novel things like, I don't know, Twitter, the internet, Facebook, all this stuff is brand new. Our biology is still, 2 centuries ago. Our biology hasn't changed, but everything in life has changed. So daily rituals to stay on track, because if you don't, this isn't an autopilot thing. You've got to include daily rituals. Well, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's prayer, whether it's walking, whether it's the shower, a cold shower, doesn't matter. But you've got to make sure you include those in your day, every day, because it's crazy out there, right? You just turn on the TV or turn on the news or walk down the street. We live in very complex times. So daily rituals would be my last point. Probably went on too long, but anyway.
No, that's okay. No, you're completely good. I think daily rituals is a great way to end it. Before I got in the shower, before jumping on this call, I thought about people that are in wars and how they don't know what their enemy is doing. They might have an idea, but it's we can't get swallowed up in what we think the enemy is doing. It's we got to do our thing. We got to fight. We got to do our thing. We got to be in this place at this time. We got to position ourselves well. And that's what all these rituals and things do, is they position you. Yeah,
no, exactly. Totally.
Awesome.
Totally. How you can get in touch? I'm ColinKingsmill.com, or I'm on Instagram too. Sometimes, most of the time. So I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm easily findable. ColinKingsmill.com though is a good place to start.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely have all that stuff in the show notes, and just thank you so much for coming on. It was a real blessing, and I look forward to talking with you again and be like, hey, look, all this stuff that's been happening. It'll be pretty wild. So.
Definitely. Let's stay in touch. Stay in touch for sure. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, Colin.
Appreciate it.